I have for you guys is our feminist values represented in Sikhism. So either one of you guys want to
So I guess I start. With the feminist values meaning treating all human beings with an equal worth, meaning that women and men are completely equal and fighting for that truth. And I believe, and I look, when I study into Sikhi and I look into my life, the way that I'm taught, Sikhi is based around this. If we look at the very origin of Sikhi and we look at where it's come from, first of all, the very message of Sikhi itself, that the same light is residing within each and every one of us, not only each person, but each object as well, each molecule that we can think of. So really, we divide ourselves with these labels where we call each other a woman, where we call each other a man, where we call somebody taller, where we call somebody shorter. But in reality, it's that same light that's residing in each of us. And when we see that same light, that's what we're trying to pursue, then there is no division left. So Sikhi is based around complete equality of not only just man and woman, but everything in itself. And are these like feminist values, showed upon in Sikhi? And yes, of course they are, because Sikhi is founded on this. Because if we look at the time, the very first Sikh, before we even talk about Guru Nanak Dev Ji, let's talk about his mother, let's talk about his elder sister, let's talk about the maid that gave him birth. We talked about Daulat Adai, who's the maid. We talked about his mother, Mata Tripta Ji, and we talked about his sister, who was Bibi Nanaki Ji. We're just talking about Bibi Nanaki, she was actually the very first Sikh. The very first Sikh in all of Sikh history was a woman, right? And a woman who was, when she was 5 years old, she came back. Just a quick little story, getting into it. She came back from playing with other 5-year-old girls in the park and around the streets. And when she came home, she saw that in each of the households of her friends, when they would go home, they would play with their younger brothers. And when she came home, she had no siblings. So imagine this pure love, because Sikhi is founded on this, the essence of pure love. Even Guru Nanak Dev Ji in Gurbani, it said that Nanak Raj Jalaya Sach quotes starting that. Even though I'm saying these quotes, I'll translate them for those that don't understand. Don't worry, don't get too. So Nanak Raj Jalaya, meaning the kingdom of truth has been started by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, but on what bricks was this foundation built? The foundation of these bricks was built on such such meaning truth. They're built on the bricks of truth. And the truth meaning the truth resides within you, the truth resides within me. That's where the word Satanam we might have heard in Sikhi. The word Satanam meaning that true name, which like for example, somebody might call me, my name's Harman. Somebody might call me a son. Somebody might call me a brother. Somebody might call me a friend. Somebody might call me a fellow student, or a classmate. But these are all labels of me. That's not who I actually am. But there are different names. Just like that, we may call God Allah. We may call God God. We may call God, Waheguru. We had different names for it. But in the end, these are labels that we might call him the giver because he gives. We might call him the merciful because he is merciful. But within all of this, we're still referring to him. These names are attributes, physical attributes that we link to him or her. But in the same way, he is just he. Just like that, the same light of him or her is residing within each of, because he's genderless, he's beyond death, he's beyond this. These are things that we associate. But Sikhi is saying, go beyond the physical. And this foundation of Sikhi that started here by Bibi Nanaki, when she was young, with this true love, with this true, completely pure love, she goes home that evening when she doesn't see that there's no young brother that's playing in her household. She goes and she would imagine that pure love that night where she's sitting there and she's praying, that pure innocent prayer of that 5-year-old daughter, Bibi Nanaki. She's sitting there, when she prays, God not only sent her a brother, but he himself came in the form of a person and came into that household. Right? So the Sikhi, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's arrival into the world, before we even talk about Guru Nanak Dev Ji, that's way after, but even just Bibi Nanak, the very first Sikh, before Guru Nanak Dev Ji is even born, that true love of essence was already starting to come out. And it was coming from, again, Bibi Nanaki Ji. And then Daulat Adai, right? Her name, Daulat, it means wealth. But she would be a maid, she would give birth to people. But when she came and gave birth to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, she was waiting that, after she would give birth, she would go and she would collect money because the father would get happy and they gave him a child, and she would get money out of that because that was her work. But this time when she came out, She said, I don't want any money. There's no money that can give me or that can live up to this experience that I had giving birth to this child, because this was completely based around love. This arrival of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, because at the time, the tyranny, the oppression, all of these things that were happening at the time, if you just look at how Sikhi was started, if we look at the caste system, the time of what the area was like, talking about feminism, talking about human rights, the social hierarchy was basically the kings, the emperors, the nobility at the top. Then it would be the caste system of the people who are allowed to teach or preach religion, practice religion. It was a separate, you have to be born in that family. If you're not outside, if you're born in a separate family, you're not even allowed to listen to that scripture. If, for example, we think of discrimination as calling somebody bad, but that was a discrimination to the next level, where, for example, somebody's in that room over there and they're reading religious scriptures, and I walk by, or somebody else that's not part of that religious caste, they were to walk by, they would, just because those words of religious scriptures came into this person's ear, they would arrest that person and pull molten hot lead down his ear. That's how much of discrimination, because he's just not born in that family. Under the religious caste, there was the warriors, the warrior class, the fighters, the soldiers. Under that, there's the tradesmen, there's the merchants, there's the journeymen. And underneath that, then there's the slaves. So under the slaves, there's a hierarchy of animals. There's cows, there's different types of animals. At the very, very bottom, there's the lowest animal is considered to be the pig. And even under the pig was considered the woman. That's how low it was at that time. So even if there was a pig or a woman, they would treat the pig with more respect than that woman. That's how bad it was. With the cremation, there's a concept called sati at the time, where if a man died and they were married, the couple, if a man died, and even though they might be 16, even though they might be 30 years old, at that time, they would take the woman and they would forcibly throw her into the cremation pyre of the man, just because she's not allowed to live. But if the woman died, the guy is allowed to remarry. That's the type of system, that's the type of world that was, happening at the time. They were considered, like, a woman was considered lower than, the pig's shoe. That's how bad it was. But then Guru Nanak Dev Ji, kind of the revolution at the time, a young kid going up, they said, we need to baptize you, we need to send you into this because this is how you were born. And he said, my sister is 5 years older than me. She should have had this baptism 5 years ago. If she can't have it, then I'm not going to do it either. Because my sister is elder than me. And there's many stories when he would go on his travels, when he would come back, when they would meet each other again, even though the entire world may be bound down to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the entire world, by Balaji, by Mardana Ji, who accompanied them on their travels. They traveled 28,000 kilometers on foot, traveled to Mecca, traveled to Saudi Arabia, they traveled to the Himalayas, traveled to Sri Lanka, all across the world on foot. They traveled to these places. The entire world is bowing down to them because they've become the saint. But who were they bowing down to? Whenever they would meet their sister, they would go and they would touch the feet of their sister, their elder sister. That's how much respect Guru Nanak Dev Ji had for women, because it was founded on this, because completely genderless. And here, just imagine that conversation. Here, Babbe Nani Ji, who is the very first Sikh, she's recognized Guru Nanak Dev Ji as being an embodiment of God from a very young age, right when they were born. And from that age, she's treated them with such respect. And she doesn't only treat them like a younger brother, but she treats them, she says, you're my God, you shouldn't be touching my feet, because you are God. People bowing down to you. Guru Nanak Dev Ji's reply is, what do you mean? That makes no sense. I'm 5 years younger than you. It only makes sense that I should be touching your feet. Because it doesn't matter about whatever the world says. You're elder than me. You took care of me when I couldn't even walk. And that's why I take my hands, I touch it upon your feet. Them, even their mother, they went and touched their feet. And in that same way, fighting for, Guru Amar Das Ji, if we move forward, just quickly cutting through history. Obviously, if we talk about the woman in Sikh history, we could be sitting here for like years. I could just keep on going and going, talking about all the great people. Like even Gurbani talks about Mata Kivi Ji, who is the wife of the second Guru, Mata Kivi Ji, and she's mentioned in Gurbani saying, Mata Kivi Nek Jan Jin Bauti Shopat Rali, meaning she's the ideal woman, meaning everybody, guys and girls, they should be looking up to this amazing person, because Mata Kivi, she's Nek Jan. Out of millions and millions, she's very rare such a person to find as great as Mata Kivi Ji. And why? Because Jin Boti Shobat Rali, because she has such love, she had such compassion that she would be able to give people a shoulder to cry on. That was her nature. That was how much love. People would just go to her and they'd automatically feel connected to her. because she was just so open, she was so warm, right? Whereas the other side, there's guys saying, oh, women should be like this and this and this and this. But there, in this sense, it's about love. And here Mata Kiri, she's mentioned there, but what is she giving? She's not only serving langar, langar meaning free kitchen. Not only is she serving free food, langar the daulat the bandiya. She's not only serving free food to everybody, this wealth of langar, she's also spreading this wealth of love, this wealth of this connection to God, this wealth of connecting to each other in such a way that they're all family. In that sort of way, that's why she's this ideal person that not only women but all guys should be looking up towards. And she's mentioned in Gurbani. Then we look at Guru Amar Das Ji, who this concept of sati, we're throwing into commission fire. Basically, he's just demolished all that, building a city where women again at that time a woman is not allowed to leave the house. This is the system that they were living in, bringing in these concepts where women are allowed to work, everything complete revolutionary. I mean, at that time it was if you looked the emperor in the eye, or if you didn't bow down to the emperor, it meant execution. But Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the revolutionary, he went up against Babur, who was the emperor, and Babur meaning humanitarian, Jabbar means you're a tyrant, and he went up to Babur. Not only he never bowed down to him, he's yelling at him, you're saying, Babur, you're not a Babur, you're not a humanitarian, you're a Jabbar, meaning you're a tyrant. Saying up to this was the revolution, this is the person that's going up and fighting for this freedom, with Mata Sulakhani Ji, Bebe Nanaki Ji at their side. These people who he was bowing down to. A lot of times people, they quote this Pankti in Gurbani. And I've had a lot of people come up to me saying that Sikhi is preaching feminism, Sikhi is preaching women's equality, but you're not practicing it. And they say that when you refer to God, they go to the scriptures and they keep saying he is God, or God is a he. But in Gurbani, it never refers to God being a he. It does in some sense where he's the husband Lord and we're the sole bride. But that's one analogy. So if somebody says we're all soul brides and he's the God and he's higher than us, that means women are less. But no, that's one analogy where it says we're all sab suhagan mana raliyan ek devo raat murari. So we're all soul brides, which are looking for that loving, that blissful night, that blissful connection with their husband Lord. That's one connection. So in that sense, we're all women, guys. That's beyond bodies. That's looking at the soul bride itself. That's beyond the physical genders. Complete equality here as well. That's one analogy. If you look in another analogy, Bans ko pood brihan chalya sone mandap shai, Rupa kanya sundar bedi, Sassa Singh Gungai. In this analogy, where it's talking about our mind, our body, we are the sun. We are boys in this analogy, all guys and girls. And that, what are we doing? We're moving away from our mother of Maya, this mother of sinful thoughts, this mother of the thing that pull us away from love and connection, that bring us into ego, lust, anger, pride. And they bring us into these types of things. We're moving away from that mother that's grabbing us and controlling us, just like the mother is controlling that son. And that son is moving up, but what does he do? Rupa Kanya Sundar Beti. He goes and he marries this beautiful bride. So in this analogy, God is the bride. God is these beautiful analogies, beautiful virtues of God, that where our mind, or the son of this mind, we want to leave these sinful thoughts and we want to go and marry these beautiful concepts or these beautiful virtues of God. So in that sense, Gurbani is using both analogies of he and she. So there's complete equality actually written in the text. So some people that do come up to me and they say that, oh, Sikhi is saying this, but if you look in your scriptures, it's saying one thing. And say, but if you actually read Gurbani, that person, I ask them different analogies, they won't know anything. They won't know the different analogies. And even they say that, in your text it's saying God is a he, but in Gurbani, many times they're saying he is the giver or he is the merciful. Why does it use he? But that they're not reading the actual words that it's in, because it's actually written in Gurmukhi, which is they're actually just reading the translations of one person. That translator has translated it to he is like this. But what the actual writing is saying ape, meaning it's genderless. It's saying you. So it's a conversation saying you are the merciful. You is completely genderless. It's not a he or a she. So you are genderless. You are the merciful. You are the Father. You are the one that blesses me with this love. And that's what Gurbani is actually saying. Just because one translations aren't actual Gurbani. That's not the actual scripture. Our actual scripture is what's actually written in Gurmukhi, the actual writing which Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj is written in. And this is why Sikhi is founded, it's founded on this concept of feminism and this complete equality with men, women, regardless of anything, because we want to look beyond these bodies. We want to look beyond, because Mara says, Man tu jyot swaroop hai apna mool pachan, meaning recognize what you actually are. Don't think that you are this body. Don't think that you are this person, that who you think yourself. Because our psyche, we wake up and we say, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go to work, I'm gonna eat this, I'm gonna grow up and become this, this is my family, this is my food, these are my clothes. All throughout the day, our psyche is saying me, 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 me. And home meaning me, ma also means me. Home is this thing that separates us from God. It's this thing, this illusion that allows us this separation. So when we get so stuck in this me, we start thinking, I'm a man, I'm better than these women. Or I'm a man, or I'm a woman, I'm better than this other woman. Or I'm a man, I'm a rich man, I'm better than this poor man. So it's all about me. But Maharaj is saying in Gurbani, when I say Maharaj, I'm referring to the king, just in case anybody doesn't understand that. When Guru Maharaj, in Gurbani, they say that you don't want to be thinking of me, you want to thinking of you. So look outside of yourself, because the light is in front of you. They say, in this water, there's God. In this air, there's God. In this dirt, there's God. Inside of each and every person, there's God. Even though there's God sitting right in front of me, and beside me is God. Inside of me is God. So if I'm looking at God, how can I say God is better than God? Because in this equation, there's no such thing as me. So if there's only you left, then everything in Sikhi is connecting back to ik. All of Gurbani comes back to this one letter. And if there is one, then there is no man or female, because that's two things. There is no conflict. He's nirvad, meaning he's away from conflict. He's enemyless, conflictless. And you can only have conflict if there's two things. But the realization of the spiritual enlightenment at the foundation of Sikhi comes from one. And that's what Sikhi is founded upon. Vaheguru, 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 Vaheguru.